Late in the evening, the office was almost empty. One employee remained at their desk while everyone else was already leaving. A co-worker approached with a stack of unfinished tasks. "You're always so reliable," they said with a smile. "Could you handle this too?" The answer was already expected before the question was finished, and that quiet expectation reveals something important. How many times have you been respected for being good? Not liked, not tolerated, respected. Think carefully. How many times did your kindness actually protect you? How many times did being understanding make people treat you better? And how many times did the opposite happen? The uncomfortable truth is this: the world often punishes the person who tries too hard to be good. The more you bend, the more they expect. The more you give, the less they value it. The more you try to be accepted, the less you are respected. That contradiction is not accidental. It is structural. For centuries, we were taught a comforting story. Be honest, be humble, be patient, and the world will eventually reward you. But what if that story was never meant to empower you? What if it was meant to make you predictable, manageable, safe? Niccolò Machiavelli saw this long before modern psychology existed. In a brutally clear sentence, he exposed the illusion that still governs most people's lives. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you truly are, and that single observation changes everything. A cashier smiles through an evening rush, deflects complaints, and takes an extra shift. The manager adjusts schedules around that reliability. The smile becomes a fixture, expected, not noticed. Because if the world responds to appearance, posture, and perceived power, not to your inner intentions, then a life spent trying to simply be good becomes a dangerous strategy. In this video, we are going to cross a line most people never dare to approach. We will examine why the obsession with being good quietly destroys personal power. Why excessive kindness becomes a signal of weakness in social hierarchies. And why Machiavelli's philosophy was never about cruelty, but about survival. And later in this video, we will arrive at a question so uncomfortable that most people spend their entire lives avoiding it. A question that forces a choice. Do you want to be loved, or do you want to be free? Because in the silent mechanics of human behavior, those two things often move in opposite directions. You grew up hearing a simple moral formula: be a good person, be kind, be patient, be understanding. If someone hurts you, forgive. If someone mistreats you, be the bigger person. The idea sounds noble, almost sacred. But notice what happens when this philosophy is applied without strategy. Gradually, being good stops meaning being just. It starts meaning something else entirely. It starts meaning do not confront, do not impose limits, do not make others uncomfortable. And slowly, almost invisibly, goodness becomes self-erasure. You stop saying what you think. You avoid conflict at all costs. You silence your anger so others can remain comfortable. And the world learns something very important about you. You are safe to exploit. This is where most people misunderstand Machiavelli. They assume he was promoting cruelty or manipulation. But what he actually did was something far more disturbing. He simply described reality. In The Prince, he writes that a ruler who tries to act virtuous at all times will inevitably be destroyed by those who are not. Pause for a moment and notice what this implies. It means morality without awareness becomes vulnerability. Imagine a common situation. At work, someone consistently pushes responsibilities onto you. You accept them quietly. You want to be helpful. Cooperative. Weeks pass, months pass. Eventually, your kindness becomes expected, not appreciated. One day, the workload becomes too much, and you finally say no. The room becomes strangely quiet. People who depended on your endless agreement suddenly look irritated. Your kindness was never the problem. Your boundaries were simply missing. Now observe something carefully. The moment you finally say, "I can't take this on," the reaction is rarely gratitude. It is irritation. Why? Because the system had already adjusted to your submission. This is the psychological trap of the good person. The more consistently you sacrifice yourself, the more the environment restructures itself around your sacrifice. And when you try to reclaim your space, it feels to others like a violation. Notice what happens here. The problem was never kindness itself. The problem was kindness without boundaries. Machiavelli understood something about human nature that many moral teachings ignore. People do not primarily respond to intentions. They respond to signals, signals of strength, signals of consequence, signals of hierarchy. A person who never imposes limits unconsciously communicates something very specific. There is no cost to crossing me. And human behavior, whether we like it or not, is highly sensitive to cost. Remove consequences, and boundaries dissolve. This is why the endlessly agreeable individual often becomes invisible. Not because they lack value, but because they project no resistance. And in social ecosystems, resistance defines presence. Think about the people who command attention in a room. In a project meeting, one person asks a single direct question: who owns the deadline? The room falters, the agenda sharpens. The presence created by that line alone steers the conversation. They are not necessarily the nicest people, often they are not. But they possess something else. They possess a clear boundary. Their posture communicates there is a line here. Machiavelli expressed this idea through one of the most famous metaphors in political philosophy. He wrote that a leader must learn to be both a fox and a lion. The fox sees the traps. The lion scares away the wolves. Without the fox, you become naive. Without the lion, you become prey. And most people who obsess over being good are trained to be neither. They are trained to be harmless. Being good is not the problem. Being harmless is. Notice the conditioning. From childhood, emotional expression is often disciplined in subtle ways. Do not raise your voice. Do not challenge authority. Do not create discomfort. Over time, a powerful psychological association forms. Acceptance equals compliance. Rejection equals authenticity. So the child learns something dangerous. To belong, I must shrink. Years pass. The behavior becomes automatic. You scan rooms for tension. You adjust your personality to fit expectations. You apologize even when you did nothing wrong. From the outside, it looks like empathy. But internally, it is driven by something else. Fear. Fear of being disliked, fear of being abandoned, fear of being seen as difficult. This is why excessive niceness often hides a deeper psychological mechanism, the avoidance of rejection. People wear goodness like a form of social armor. Liking becomes a currency traded to keep isolation and shame at bay. Over time, that currency becomes habit. Preemptive concessions replace honest responses, and identity bends around the need to be accepted. And this mechanism has consequences, because a person who fears rejection cannot enforce boundaries, and a person who cannot enforce boundaries cannot maintain authority in relationships. Imagine another familiar situation. A friend constantly cancels plans at the last minute. You say it's okay. Every time. You tell yourself you're being understanding. Months later, the pattern hasn't changed. Because tolerance without limits quietly teaches people how little they must respect your time. Machiavelli did not analyze this in psychological terms, but he understood the pattern perfectly. A ruler who tries too desperately to be loved becomes dependent on the approval of others, and dependence is the opposite of power. Notice what happens to someone who is always trying to be liked. They explain themselves constantly. They justify their decisions. They soften their opinions. They apologize before expressing disagreement. And every time this happens, something subtle occurs in the social dynamic. Their perceived authority drops, not because they are weak, but because they appear uncertain about their own legitimacy. Now observe the opposite behavior. Someone with clear internal authority does something very simple. They say no, calmly, without drama, and then they stop explaining. This is where many people panic. They think asserting boundaries will make others dislike them, and sometimes it will. But here is the paradox that Machiavelli recognized centuries ago. Respect often appears exactly where approval disappears. Because respect is built on perceived strength. Approval is built on compliance. They are not the same thing. Approval asks you to shrink. Respect appears when you refuse to. This leads us to another uncomfortable observation. People frequently claim they value kindness above all else. But when choosing who to follow, trust, or respect, they often choose the person who projects strength. This contradiction confuses many people, but it becomes clear once you understand how perception works. Human beings evolved in environments where survival depended on reading signals of dominance, stability, and control. A person who appears uncertain about their own boundaries triggers doubt. A person who projects calm authority triggers security. This is why Machiavelli insisted that perception is not superficial. It is strategic. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you truly are. Your intentions are invisible. Your posture is not. Your boundaries are not. Your willingness to impose consequences is not. And this is where the philosophy becomes liberating rather than cynical. Because Machiavelli never argued that you should abandon compassion, he argued that compassion without strength invites exploitation. You can be generous, but generosity must be selective. You can be patient, but patience must have limits. You can be kind, but kindness must never require self-erasure. Otherwise it stops being virtue, it becomes surrender. At this point, something important must be confronted. Many people maintain their good person identity not because it is moral, but because it is safe. It protects them from criticism, it allows them to avoid conflict. But it also prevents something else: freedom. Because the moment you stop trying to satisfy everyone, reactions change. Some people become distant, some become hostile, others accuse you of changing. Notice the pattern carefully. People rarely complain when you sacrifice yourself. They complain the moment you stop. They rarely question the years you gave quietly. But the first time you protect your own space, suddenly you are the problem. This realization is uncomfortable, but it is also clarifying because it reveals something important. Many relationships are not built on respect. They are built on access. And the moment access becomes limited, the illusion disappears. This is the moment where most people retreat. They return to their old role, the accommodating friend, the endlessly understanding partner, the employee who never refuses. But those who continue forward discover something unexpected. The people who respected them only because they were useful disappear. And the few who respect strength remain. This is the silent sorting mechanism of boundaries. Machiavelli would call it clarity. And clarity often feels lonely at first, because you are no longer playing the role that made others comfortable. You are becoming visible, not louder, just real. So where does this leave you? After all these layers of uncomfortable truth, the conclusion is both simple and difficult. Being good is not the problem. Being harmless is. A person who is good but incapable of imposing limits becomes predictable. Predictable people become controllable. Controllable people become expendable. Machiavelli understood this with brutal precision. Power does not come from cruelty. It comes from the ability to enforce boundaries. to say no without apology, to withdraw your energy from those who exploit it, to remain calm when others attempt to manipulate your need for approval. And that brings us back to the question we promised at the beginning. The question most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Do you want to be loved, or do you want to be free? Because when love depends on your silence, it is not love, it is convenience. When approval requires your submission, it is not acceptance, it is control. Freedom begins the moment you stop negotiating your dignity for validation. It begins when you accept something many people cannot tolerate. Not everyone will like you. Some will misunderstand you. Some will resent your boundaries. Some will disappear entirely. But something else appears in their place. Self-respect. And self-respect changes everything. You stop begging for recognition. You stop explaining your existence. You choose who deserves your presence. That is the real lesson hidden inside Machiavelli's philosophy. Not domination, sovereignty, the ability to govern yourself. And once you reach that point, something strange happens. You can still be kind, you can still be compassionate, but your kindness becomes a gift, not an obligation. It is offered deliberately, and it can be withdrawn when necessary. That is the difference between a person who serves the expectations of the world and a person who finally becomes the ruler of their own life. If this realization unsettles you a little, that is a good sign. In the next video, we will explore another uncomfortable dimension of power. Why people often trust those who appear confident, even when they are wrong. And why uncertainty, even when honest, can silently destroy authority. But for now, there is only one step. Watch your next decision. The next time someone crosses a boundary. The next time you feel the impulse to say yes when everything inside you says no. Pause and choose deliberately. Because freedom does not arrive all at once. It begins with a single moment where you decide that your dignity is no longer negotiable. And from that moment forward, your kindness is no longer submission. It becomes a choice made by someone who finally owns their own life. If you made it this far, you're part of the small percentage of people who truly want to change their lives. Leave a like, subscribe, and share this video so that, just like you, more people can develop a sovereign mindset. Don't miss the next video. It could be your first step toward becoming truly sovereign.